If you love the Uppercase family of publications, you're in exactly the right spot for this video. My name is Hazel. This is Hazel Anaka Design, and I am going to do a flip through of the glue issue of the Encyclopedia of Inspiration. As I've said, it's an uppercase publication, and it's one of 12 in the series right at the moment. Or I guess 12, maybe counting the quilting one that's coming up. I am lucky to own a copy of each of them. So I've done flip throughs of these books before, and I'll try not to get bogged down, although that is very, very hard because it's beautiful. The thing that sets these books apart is the fact that they come with this sort of slip cover that has 4 different designs printed on it. So a person, you can fold it however you want to change the look of the outside wrapper. Just for ease of flipping, I think I'll take it off altogether. So, as I said, this is the G issue, the glue issue, and I haven't had a chance to read the entire thing. I know that when we were on vacation earlier this year, I did take the print one, no, the Stitchillo one with me, and I had the luxury of time to read it from cover to cover and start again at the beginning. That is harder to manage at home. So I think the reason I wanted to do another one of these flip throughs at this particular time is as a way of introducing the product to more people and to give you a heads up that I will be interviewing the owner, publisher, brain trust of this whole idea, Janine Vangool. There's her name. So I'm interviewing her on the last Wednesday in February during my Heart to Heart series. And so I think it would be great, number one, if you could join us, and number two, if you have some understanding of the quality and caliber of work that she turns out. So it's very much, don't you just love that? I mean, maybe everyone doesn't love poppies as much as I do, but is that not beautiful? And the thing is that, glue is one of the first supplies that I or most of the viewers of this channel would be reaching for. So this is very much right up our alley. I'm not going to, pause and talk about every page because that would take forever. The book has over 400 and almost 450 pages. Oh, there's a copy of all the current titles. So I've done a flip through of Notions, and I think Printmaker. I should really keep track of that. Maybe the Feed Sack one, I don't quite remember. Quilted is being reprinted, and I'm waiting for that, for my copy to come when the print run is done. So look at this. Isn't this clever? All these old, crusty, hard paintbrushes. And this lady who lives in, where does she live? I can't just quickly lay my hands on it. Look at some of the gigantic pieces she does. She does murals, and she's taken to, collecting plastic and so on her walks. So I guess she sorts by color, which of course is the intuitive way to do it, the way I would do it if I was doing it, just because it makes the most sense. So just beautiful. These, I don't know, you probably can't see, those are all golf tees. All golf tees. Anyway, let's move along here. Now, this lady is from Poland. I guess she lives in the UK now. And she did illustration of educational books for a long time, and then wanted kind of a change. And this, you'll see through the coming pages that her aesthetic is pretty recognizable. She's got some whimsical creations there. And all of her, she does her work, this is as far as I got in the book. She does her, she creates her own painted papers, so the work is all truly her own. Aren't these cool? She says, the glue that works best for me is bookbinding glue. It's acid-free, strong enough to hold down even larger pieces of paper. Patience is part of the process. She says that she always glues each layer separately, giving the paper time to settle and stretch. Once it's in place, I press it under a heavy stack of books, my trusty method for keeping everything flat and smooth. And haven't we all done that as well? So you can see this. She got a fairly long spread in this book. So it's I don't know about you, but I love books like this because it gives me a peek into a person's space. So for instance, I could spend quite a bit of time looking at these things thinking, oh, she repurposed, maybe a can from beans or something. Oh, anchovies. And, oh, I've got something like that. Oh, I wish I had something like that. That sort of voyeuristic thing. Now this fellow, again, because I didn't have a chance to read every single word, this is going to be more looking at the pictures kind of thing. This guy is from Montreal. Professional life as an art director and graphic designer for 30 years in the New York advertising environment. Imagine the pressure there. So he seems to have kind of his own style and, far more muted colors than what we've seen so far with those ladies. I use Yoo-hoo glue sticks in various widths. I tend to add a lot of glue and do a lot of burnishing. Often a piece will be ripped out and reapplied, adding to the weathered, distressed look. I honestly didn't know. Well, I suppose. I use the 40-gram glue sticks. So that's the big one. I suppose when he says, where is my glue stick? When he says different widths, he probably means, if it's a smaller size tube, naturally it's a smaller size tip on it. Because I've never seen them available in different widths, so to speak. More of his work. And the nice thing is that she always includes like the website or the person's handle, so a person can definitely go back and find, go a little deeper. One of my earliest memories is of making art with a babysitter when I was 4 or 5 years old, and of the awe and flow I felt in the making. Winding her way back to art in her mid-40s. Took a long time to reconnect with art, but it's been the best decision. She lives in San Francisco Bay Area. So hers is very much an abstract thing. Looks like she's part of a studio complex where there are over 100 artists in the building. Wonderfully supportive community. Another thing a person's that I pick up on when I see some of these in-studio pictures is how very big and open their spaces are. They're not trying to do things the width of a camera area, so to speak. Okay, this gal, don't know where she's from. You can see much more vivid colors. I use hand-painted papers, and my own discarded paintings are cannibalized, ripped up, and destroyed to make new ones. I frequently recycle and reuse my artwork. I reach into the trash can near my art table just as often as I reach for fresh or new material. Often I'll rummage through just to see what shred might rise to the top, like picking a mystery element. I may toss it back, but so often it's a surprise and a very fortunate key to a piece. I think we've all experienced that to some degree or other too, where we think, oh, I just had the perfect thing. I know I've rifled through my garbage and either found it or realized, oh, I dumped it. I emptied the can. Favorite adhesives are glue sticks, tape, and or gel medium. And it's like everything else. This is a book of inspiration, an encyclopedia of inspiration, but it's also a chance for us to be inundated with colors and inspiration and maybe exposure to new techniques, but also to maybe firm up in our own minds what we like more over, what we maybe like less of. I can't imagine doing this on the floor. That would be very hard on one's body. She's from Mumbai, but is now, I guess, in Germany for the last 20 years. I can't imagine working in that position. You can see she's got a recurring theme with hearts there. I guess, if anything, there's the one thing that is hard to tell, and maybe it's, not that important in the long run, how big these pieces are. Like, are these 4x6s or are they 2 feet by 3 feet? And you can see too that when people work in a series, there's much more cohesion and balance than there would if when we do one-ofs. So, oh, look at this. Okay, working in a series, I work a lot in series. I decide on a format or a color theme or topic and make a lot of pieces. The 100-Day Project is a huge favorite and has really helped me grow as an artist. I have an ongoing series of collaged hearts. Every year in January, I do a project to start off the year. This year, I created 50 cards using a uniform color scheme. I'm a big believer in creating a body of work or a series. It has helped me tremendously to hone my art and develop my intuition. And look at what an impact it makes when it's all photographed together. And it all hangs together. And a person could, again, I'm sorry to be repeating myself, but a person could be there for days looking at the individual elements and looking for commonalities from one piece to the other. Being a makery, Bethany and Anna, powerful mixed media collages, building community. So Bethany is an artist, illustrator, graphic designer. Anna is an artist, art educator, and social emotional arts leader. Didn't know there was such a thing. So that's kind of cool. Okay. Passionate or curious about. We can get grouchy when the final product of a piece has dominated the flow of the process for too long. And so we roll out our fodder cart, glue and brushes, and allow ourselves the freedom of collaging the first layer of a blank canvas. We are hunters and gatherers, constantly on the lookout for interesting materials we can glue onto a canvas. Okay, so looks like that is what they use as a substrate, which of course adds its own texture right off the bat. We practice drawing, painting, printmaking, spray painting, and image transfer to make our collage papers, and it is thrilling to see how it all adheres to the surface of the canvas, or doesn't. Nice to know that even some of the big stars have the same issues that we do. We use gel medium as our main source of adhesive, but have also used all kinds of tape, stitching, and stapling. Our favorite tools are glue brushes, so we can apply the medium thickly, and old credit cards when we need to flatten out a wrinkly application, and when making fodder. And even though this is a big messy work surface, as is that, can't you just imagine yourself digging through it, looking for goodies? And again, you can see here that they have the luxury of, huge bare wall space to hang their pieces and even work on them in a standing position where you can actually put some distance between yourself and your work. That obviously makes a big difference. Okay, looks like this is still theirs. Benefits of working together: we hold each other accountable. We have a healthy balance of trusting each other to go for it and supporting each other with quick check-ins or confirmations with collage piece placements when they're feeling stuck. Oh, this is still their work. Oh, look, giant gumball machine. Cool. Cool. We love finding and using materials we already have. Boy, hasn't that become the battle cry of 2026 for many of us. When we started working together, part of our manifesto was to not buy new things, and we truly try not to. But just like magpies, sometimes we are inspired and excited by shiny new materials. Well, I can't say that I understand that feeling at all. Okay, I prolong the life of an object that may not seem extraordinary in its own right, but once enshrined in an artwork to tell a story, it ideally has a future home. I'm not sure what's going on here. We shall see. Looks like he's trying to do a bit of a display there. Pocket knives, nails, screws, bolts. Oh dear, look at his place. Okay, what does this guy do? Some of these photos are quite small. Cow chow, hen chow, hog chow. Got some flannel shirt guys there. I implement numerous ways of holding my pieces together. I use Gorilla Super Glue, Mod Podge resin, and wallpaper paste for paper and fabric. I also use an assortment of screws, nails, staples, and tacks to secure more rigid materials. String, wire, and fishing line are also very handy. And finally, I just sandwich materials together by pressure and force. And you can see that his pieces are big and, quite often include wood. My favorite tools are my hands because I'm able to have a greater amount of control when tearing fragile pieces of older paper to get a particular line and look for the work, in contrast to a cleaner scissor cut line. Also, typically, my hands are the ones operating the various tools I use while guiding the material through different saws. Okay, New Jersey-based collage and mixed media artist. Oh, that's lovely. Bit of a streetscape. I don't know, I like this farm kit. I don't know why I'm fascinated by fire escapes, back alleys, brickwork and things like that. Maybe we always kind of are curious about what we don't have. If you start collage with the idea that it's going to be relaxing and meditative, I think anyone will enjoy the process. There's something about the simplicity of cutting paper and gluing it down that I love. There is zero technology involved. I don't need fancy equipment. It's just me, the paper, and the glue. I find it very meditative. My work is photorealistic but quirky. When you stand far away, it looks like a photo, but when you get up close, you realize that it's really just a bunch of bits of cut-up paper. I'm really inspired by architecture, especially European. I can just wander around these historic streets and take a million photos. Creating collage has changed the way I view cities. Oh, yes. And when you think about those, that every little color change there represents a piece of paper or a brick or a cobblestone or a leaf. I like to inject, slow kittens. I like to inject a little humor here and there. Life can't be taken too seriously. I use a pH neutral glue to piece the whole thing. Then I coat it in a UV protective varnish. And then if I'm working on a wooden cradle board, I coat it with a resin called liquid glass. If it's going behind glass in a frame, I skip that step. Yeah, I like her work. Clip art. I love magazines, particularly design magazines. When I look at a picture of an area rug, for example, there are so many colors in that one rug. And then when I cut that rug into little squares, every square is like a little abstract painting. And because each little square has so many colors, the finished piece is unique with a lot of depth. A collage starts with my photographs. I decide what scene I'm going to create. I print it out to the desired size. I then trace the basic outline onto the paper or the board so that I get the angles right. And that is kind of important with, obviously, perspective and straight walls and so on. And then it all begins with one square. I just start gluing pieces down. I'm sorry. Yeah, love it. Okay. Lanterns. Really nice. Okay, my style is colorful, fun, full of texture and patterns, excuse me, with a nod to mid-century design and illustration, which I love. Yeah, I've got swollen glands, so I hope my voice hangs in there a bit longer. Instead of taking a nap, I'm doing videos. Maybe less talking and more just showing. My sketchbooks are a really important part of my work and practice. I say sketchbooks, but really they are like collage scrapbooks. I do draw straight onto the pages, but mostly they are collages. I have a drawer in my studio full of loose, random, small artworks. It may even be a tiny doodle I've drawn on a scrap of paper, but these eventually get stuck down and form a vital source of inspiration for me. I refer to them all the time, and often a bigger project I'm working on will have started in some small way from these pages. It might be a certain pattern to use or a color combination that pleases me. I always have a sketchbook with me and a small pencil case containing scissors, glue, a pencil, and a few pens, just the essentials. I even have a small notebook, excuse me, with see-through pockets on each page that I fill with scraps of my paper sample offcuts so that I can collage wherever I am in the world. And of course, that's the smart way to do it, to have those supplies for when a person is stuck in traffic or, waiting for an appointment to start or something. Excuse me. Don't be too precious. Be open to experimentation. Try new things and just get right in there. I think the best work happens when you don't think too hard, when you just let go and see what happens. Downstairs studio. I'm not a very organized person, but I've really made an effort to make my studio as organized as possible within the limits of it being quite a small space. It's a downstairs room in our house overlooking the garden. I have feeders in the shrubs and trees just outside my window so that I can see the wild birds that come to the garden. I have used 2 long lengths of plywood on either side of my room with trestle legs and plan to add chests underneath. I work on one and try to, oh, this is, yeah, how's this for a goal? I work on one and try to keep the other one clear for laying out larger projects and packing orders. There is space to one side on the long tabletop for my computer. On one wall, I have a giant pegboard, a cork notice board, and a chalkboard. They're all in a row and take up the whole wall. There's a bit of a desktop there. I have lots of shelves with some of my favorite books and magazines. There's a pile of Uppercase magazines, of course. Of course. My pots with the pens, pencils, and brushes that I use all the time are in front of me. All of my pots have faces on them, and they all keep a watch on me while I'm working. Maybe that's where I've gone wrong. I don't have anyone overseeing me, supervising, monitoring. Okay, I have my big metal toolbox in a wonderful bright orange color. Excuse me, orange being one of my favorite colors, and cube shelving along another wall, which helps to store things neatly. I do like a tidy studio, but as a collage artist, that's a difficult challenge. I can clear my desk for a new project, but as soon as I start working, the desk gets covered in snippets of paper, and my working area gets smaller and smaller. I do love my studio. It's still a work in progress, but it's getting there. I use a very old-fashioned glue called, I've never heard of this. Oh, it's made in Italy, no wonder. Coccioina. It's a glue made in Italy from potato starch and almond oil. It smells lovely. I also use Japanese nori starch paste. Okay, I think I better speed up here. Maybe I should start flipping from the back. Then I won't be so inclined to read you passages. Glue is what holds the words together. The ink smell from these books is always very strong. Making art is a tightrope we create by excluding everything that isn't a tightrope. Yes. I'm a poet and musician. I want poetry and music in my art and song in my poetry, and color and poetry in my music. Well, that's not too much to ask for, is it? I use basic white craft glue, double-sided tape, and yarn techniques, in brackets, embroidery and crochet. So this is a beautiful page to look at. Yeah, I can see the fibers showing up there. Cool. She's got a hand mixer and she's mixing her yarn. Whoops. Yeah, a person would have to know how to crochet to do those kinds of things. I always try to see beyond the original purpose of the object and combine materials in unexpected ways. Like this woman poking out of a little tray or a tin of buttons. Oh, this is quite... Okay, just as a painter has their paints, my palette is my extensive collection of colorful fabrics, joyful novelty, and conversation prints, and surface-designed fabrics. That is all fabrics, people. Fusing. I use a fusible interfacing as my base. I've used strips and or squares of this, and once covered with fabric, I'll put them on my design wall and start playing with an interesting arrangement. I also have recently made a textile collage / art quilt on one piece of fusible interfacing as large as 39 inches. Then there is no piecing. It's one large collage. That's very cool. It sort of combines, you know, that idea of quilting And there she is. A playful, intuitive mindset is best for making a collage. Selecting various designs from different sources to put together requires an open mind and asking what ifs. And you can see, you know, just turning that one page, you go from this to something totally, you know, more serene and neutral and so on. Oh, she's got a huge gallery wall there too. Landscape layers. I cannot read you everything. That looks interesting. This woman seemed to have a very clear botanical type angle to her pieces. When I begin making new work, I always approach it as a fresh unfolding process. You may begin heading in one direction, but find yourself going a whole different way in the end. Collage so often relies on happy accidents. Seize them and elaborate on them. Two dissonant notes can inspire an entire symphony. Oh, let's see, read this. When is a piece finished? Isn't that always the big question? I've always said that it takes two people to make a great piece of art. One to do the work and the other one to tell them when to stop. For me, making a collage is like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. All of the pieces must fit, but it isn't complete until the final piece is in its proper place. There must be a rhythm to the arrangement, a pattern of where the eye is able to wander, but always end up in that same spot. The dictionary defines arrange as to put things in a neat, attractive, or required order. For me, the key word is required. So she seems to be talking about sort of what I keep harping on, which is, you know, which way are we leading the eye to move? And is there flow, or are there areas that, you know, where the eye does a sharp stop because, you know, we didn't quite get the composition as good as it could be. If I had to identify a recurring theme, I suppose I would say it's my own personal alchemy, trying to turn grime into glitter. Oh, look at that collection of work. I'm a great believer in putting something away and coming back to it. Fresh eyes make better judgments. If I'm tired, then I will tend to overwork something. You can always add, but it's harder to take away. I can't believe this clean work surface. And isn't it nice to have that neutral gray background to display things on? I use PVA glue. I buy a big bottle and then pour it into a small jar, which I keep on my desk. I use a flat brush to apply the glue, and I always have a separate gluing surface, like a heavy piece of gray board or even plastic. The glue can then be peeled off every now and then, which is a very satisfying job to do. I flattened my glued artwork under a stack of heavy books. And again, look at the length of her table. That's pretty pleasing too, the blue-green combo. Collage is essential to my well-being. When I have days without this process of using my hands, cutting and sticking, it really does have a negative impact on me. Creating paper collages allows me to enter a state of flow. Nice. What's great with collage is that wherever one looks, there's inspiration. It can be looking at paintings in books or in a gallery, but it can also be the structure and texture of a wall, for example, or even of the ground. Well, that's a nice big space. Look at all the Yoo-hoo glue sticks. Good light. My process is not always the same. Sometimes I start with a concept and go through my materials in search of specific motifs. I often realize that I won't be able to create anything close to resembling my inner picture. At times, I envy digital collage artists because it feels like they have greater freedom. But I love the tactility of paper and using my hands and don't want to spend more time in front of a screen. Also, being limited in choice of materials bring unexpected and interesting outcomes. Other times I shuffle through paper scrap leftovers until I find a scrap that speaks to me and use it as a starting point. Sometimes it's the shape, sometimes the color, sometimes the motif. My sense is that it's quite intuitive, but it's not the entire truth because I'm definitely analytical as well, thinking about aspects such as contrast and balance in both composition and color. I think that's a really true statement. I love street art, and sometimes when I feel adventurous, I head out and create some street collages. Ooh, I wonder what that means. I don't have time to look for that. That's pretty cool. Every scrap has artistic potential. Even the tiniest paper shard is destined for eventual use in my compositions. Mostly I use matte medium. My scrapers and stencils are equally important to me. I have a 6-inch bowl scraper intended for bakers that has been very useful creating dynamic backgrounds. So I think she probably means like one of those rubber spatulas for gluing foreground elements. I wonder, these are maybe her own stencils. I design and hand cut most of my own stencils, which of course means that she owns her creation. Yeah, this will be an interesting story to read. In order to convey a fresh, confident aura, I ask myself, does this sing? Would it benefit from adding or subtracting from this composition? When the piece sings, it's complete. Earlier today, I did a live, my second mixed media live, and I was doing grid collages. So even though I should have gone, I did have a bowl of noodles, and I should have gone to have a nap. I instead worked on it a bit more. So probably at the next live, I will show you the finishing touches I did to it. It's Murphy's Law. Just the bedroom faces the road, and there was a crew mulching like willows and shrubs and small trees in the ditches. And of course, between the beeping and the backing up and the machine that can crunch small trees, it wasn't exactly napping ambiance. Beauty doesn't have to be quiet. It can be bold. It can take up space. It can be strong and unapologetic. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to adhesive. Each surface material and creative goal has its own needs. For furniture or home decor, I reach for high-quality water-based varnish. It acts as both an adhesive and a sealer, which means I can encase the paper and create a durable, long-lasting finish. My go-to is Wise Owl's matte varnish. If I'm layering transfers over decoupage, I use water-based 1-hour enamel. It self-levels beautifully and creates a smooth surface that transfers adhere to effortlessly. Oh my God. Okay, when working in my art journal or on canvas, Liquitex matte medium goes down smoothly and is forgiving when layering thinner papers like tissue. I almost always use matte over gloss because it lets the layers shine without the distraction of glare. For heavier papers, or for one of my new favorite techniques, where I build a collage on a silicone mat, then let it dry, then peel it off using another surface, I turn to Golden's gel medium. Its thicker body gives me the grip I need for denser layers. After sealing it with another layer on top, I end up with a fully encapsulated, flexible collage that's ready to be trimmed, composed, and adhered to a final surface. No matter the adhesive, I always think about how it serves the final piece, not just in appearance, but also in durability and feel. Each layer should be secure, intentional, and able to withstand weather, being applied to a piece of furniture or held in someone's hands as art. That is kind of a cool concept, to think that you create it and then you can lift it off the... My creative philosophy: stay curious, use what you have, and don't be afraid to play. What are those, gift wrap? See, photos don't necessarily have captions, so I love decoupage for its immediacy. It can completely transform a piece using accessible materials and is a process that's easy to learn but endlessly expressive. Again, I covet one of those things, for the letterpress tray. Okay. Since my papers are all painted with acrylics, I use acrylic medium, usually matte gel, to stick everything together. Without a doubt, my favorite tool is my little pair of K-A-I, bent handle scissors. They are so light and dainty and easy to hold. I would be lost without them. I don't think I've ever heard of them. Cut a piece to how you think it should be and use it. Don't keep recutting or trimming away. Put it down and move on. Know that whatever happens, it will turn out beautiful. That's almost like it was being shouted at us. All caps. I hope to always convey happiness and joy with my work. This is probably the reason I use a lot of bright colors. People have told me that my artwork makes them smile, and nothing could make me happier than that. The impact that art has had on me, though, is indescribable. As someone who has struggled with depression ever since adolescence, I cannot emphasize enough what making art daily has done for my mental well-being. Let each piece be what it wants to be. Collage is the perfect medium for people who are trying to fight perfectionism. Amen, sister. Look how tiny those are. Play. Be open to things ending up not quite how you imagined or expected. Be open to moving things around until the image sings to you. I use mostly glue sticks, occasionally PVA, sometimes tape to hold smaller pieces together, and sometimes adhesive putty, blue tack, so that it is repositionable and a little lifted off the surface. I prefer the look of layers with small shadows rather than everything looking flat. My favorite tools are my craft knife with interchangeable blades and my tiny and very sharp surgical scissors. That's a legacy from her days in a lab. And a good pair of tweezers. Everything is done by hand. Those are teensy-weensy. That is beautiful. P for poppy, F for fuchsia, T for tulip. Graphic, joyful, colorful, quirky, surprising. Again, look at how teeny-weeny that little boat is. Assemblages. See, one of those printer trays full of goodies. I could sit there and look at each one and think, okay, that's cool. Oh, I have that. Oh, I wonder where I put that. Oh, I wonder what that is. As the saying goes, one person's trash is another person's treasure. I enjoy walking and cycling around the city to search for materials. Close to where I live, I have found some beautiful items from my studio and materials to collage with. People often put, oh, I feel a sneeze coming. People often put unwanted boxes of bric-a-brac and books out on their wall or on the pavement. I can never resist having a rummage. I don't just find books or magazines to cut up for collage. Treasured finds have also... Oh my goodness. Treasured finds have also included an old letterpress printer's tray. Vintage glass jars, an old wooden trunk, and some beautifully boxed piano rolls. Man, oh man, where does this woman live? Okay, these require some study, I would say. Big fan of the humble glue stick. I've tried several brands, but my favorite is a brand called Prit that is easy to get in the UK. My trusty bone folder is great for smoothing paper down without wrinkles, pressing wayward edges into place, placing tiny fragments, and sometimes distressing the surface of papers that look too pristine. So obviously we're not going to find the goodies she did because she's in the UK. Life is multi-layered, just as my collages are. Okay, I need to speed up here. Sorry to these people in the middle of the book. Again, just eye candy. Eye candy. Oh, storefront? That paper joint? Studio, workshops, and gallery. That's kind of cool. Where is that? Melbourne. So many small pieces. Patience is a great asset. Yeah, we've heard that before. Collage can be a meditative and calming process, an absolute boon for mental health. I manipulate my iPhone photos, layering 2 and 3 images on top of each other. A fast way to do this is with the double exposure feature on an app like Snapseed. Working with opacity levels creates totally new images. These images I can print and use as collage papers. Collage offers a vast opportunity to train your decision-making skills. Have a basic plan, but let it change if it needs to. Be ready to make your own decision to reach the goal of a cohesive work. Her pieces are lovely too. I work with color and texture, and I try to include a bit of quirkiness. I hope the viewer for my work will ask themselves, can that angle or perspective really be that way? What you are born with is exactly what you need. I think my voice is starting to fail me. So this is done on button cards with buttons and stitching. No other artist has my thought process, sense of design, and color. My collages fit my personality. Making art is my passion. I can usually be found creating in some form every day. What do we have here? Oh, this looks like corrugated cardboard. That is pretty unique. I use Aleene's Ultimate Glue. It dries fast and very hard. When I hold a piece of paper in place, it will dry at whatever angle I've held it. This adds to the 3D effect of the assemblage. I've never seen or heard of that brand. I mean, that variation. These things are lovely. Again, no idea what their size is. Oh, we can get a feel for it there. We can all take simple supplies and make something beautiful. That's what I love most, taking beautiful images of nature and putting them together to make beautiful art. It is pure joy. Huh. Oh, these are textiles. Okay, I use a variety of adhesives to create my paper collages, depending on the thickness and type of paper I'm layering with and how impatient I am for it to dry. Anything from rice glue to matte medium. I avoid plastic-based glues where possible. Apart from anything else, they are inclined to leave a shiny mark that may be on view when the paper's dry. I layer and glue onto a heavier weight, smooth watercolor paper to avoid wrinkles. Heavyweight, smooth watercolor paper. Once completely glued, I will cover my work with thin silicone applique sheet. And a pile of books. The silicone sheet is a great tool to have in hand because it will simply peel away if any excess glue comes out from beneath a piece of paper, and the glue just rubs straight off the sheet. So it looks like we were getting a couple of tips as to how we could make our work a little better. I really like the ones that have the stitching added to them. Collage is a way to layer and connect the past and the present. Yeah, I like that. Okay, this is how much we have left. So let's go a little faster. I'm scared to look at the time. That's a big desktop. Tidying up. Collage materials themselves inspire me, so the process of collecting paper and ephemera, organizing and handling it, has never failed to motivate me. Although I need a certain amount of disorder to make a collage, a pile of scraps to sift through, the materials become stale after a while and need to be rehandled and mixed up. Organizing allows me to touch all my supplies and paper scraps again, and I inevitably find something exciting in the pile that I set aside for next time. Cleaning up is part of the process. Resetting my workspace re-inspires me. Color and texture wake me up and motivate me, and working with my hands soothes my mind. Like many people, I struggle with depression and anxiety and must find ways to work with and against my own brain. Making art is a way to tap into the creative part of my brain while quieting distress. My art practice took off when I finally gave myself a dedicated space to work. My studio has grown from a corner table in a small apartment to an entire room in an historic house, which my husband and I painted a shade of spring green. The walls are covered with art I purchased from other artists, postcards, magazine pages, ephemera, ideas, and scraps. My nieces, nephews, blah, blah, blah. My studio is a space my child self would have loved, and in fact always imagined having. I wish it hadn't taken me so long to give it to her. Isn't that sweet? And sad. I find collage in new places all the time, in quilts and woodworking and walls of peeling paint, piles of decaying leaves, trash. I see collage in an accumulation of objects on my desk or kitchen table. So those are just done on playing cards. Looks like she's done some in the sketchbook. Don't be precious. There is truly no shortage of materials, and there will always be interesting ways that scraps of paper can fit together. Yeah, use it, don't store it. This is just her talking about her studio in the garden. Okay. Just playing, no measurements or rules. Wow. My art is both an anchor and an escape. It grounds me in the present while giving me the freedom to explore, play, and push boundaries. The repetitive nature of cutting, folding, layering, and assembling is calming, almost like a form of active meditation. I love getting lost in the process, letting my hands work while my mind quiets. And let's be honest, making a mess is always attractive to me. There's something liberating about spreading out piles of paper, stacks of book covers, and endless tiny scraps, knowing that something beautiful is waiting to come together somewhere in the chaos. Huh. That's like the, in the wainscoting kind of style. Wonder if that's the same as this. Those pieces look very tiny. I hold it together with a mix of adhesives, each chosen based on the materials and the desired effect. When working with bookboard, my go-to is wood glue. Strong, reliable, gives me the hold I need for structured dimensional pieces. If I need an instant bond, I'll use hot glue. For layering paper and ephemera, I use my own homemade brew, a simple mix of school glue diluted with water, which gives me control over texture and flexibility. I also reach for matte, medium, and Mod Podge when I want a smooth, sealed finish. The key is knowing which adhesive works best for each layer, ensuring that everything stays exactly where it should, whether it's a tiny scrap of typography or a sculpted bookboard element. That is very interesting. This almost looks like paper quilling, but... Oh. Huh. There's always more beneath the surface, another way to see and something worth saving. I like to work from constraints. Restriction triggers my creativity and therefore offers me freedom. Collage encourages me to look at the world in a fresh, new way. Look how simple that is and yet beautiful. And this, in addition to physical paper, in recent years, I've also sourced imagery for my work from public domain collections. My steadfast go-to source is Public Domain Review, and recently their new solely image site, Public Domain Image Archive. What year was this written or copyrighted? Oh, 2025, so this is new information. But I also love digging through museum and library archive sites like Winterthur, Library of Congress, Smithsonian, and National Archives, among others. As someone obsessed with antique paper and ephemera, public domain imagery is a central part of the work I make. Much of my practice in recent years has involved mining public domain collections for imagery or for custom works focused on specific collections. Beyond using public domain materials, each work I make includes material interventions of various kinds, including additional vintage paper, detailing, adornment with beading, textile embellishment, glitter, and other assemblage elements. Each intervention is some way alters the meaning or disrupts the reading of the image. I personally believe that in most cases, an artist's voice is unique. In addition to working with material that is typically within the public domain, I feel that my artistic voice is clear in the alterations, embellishments, and compositions I create, so I feel assured that the work I put into the world has my distinct stamp on it. Always pH neutral glue. The creative archivist in me wouldn't have it any other way. I used several bookbinding and artist book classes in college. I took several bookbinding and artist book classes in college to develop my love for Linco PVA glue, and I've never looked back. I find it works equally well on paper of all kinds, especially fragile antique paper, and it holds up well for surface embellishment, whether that's glitter, cut glass, crystal rhinestones, or more substantial found materials. I typically use a set of fine point paint brushes for applying particularly small glue details. Although glue is my primary method for affixing collage elements, I also enjoy surface embellishment techniques such as embroidery and sewn-on beadwork. I have a long history of working with textiles. Okay. Very cool. Collage making is often a treasure hunt of sorts. Serendipity and chance definitely play a role in my work. Nothing is ever completely premeditated with collage, and you never know when or where it'll happen, where or when you'll happen upon a particularly great image. I love the thrill of the hunt in that sense. Mostly use an all-purpose solvent-based glue. That sounds stinky. When I was stitching into my pieces, this was really effective as it didn't get gunky and make the thread sticky. It's also clear and dries quickly. I also use Liquitex matte medium. This is great when I work on wood panels, as I can also use it to seal the piece. I use an ink brayer to roller layers of paint when making collage sheets. I also use one for monoprint. I have a few wooden ones I've collected, but the rubber ones are my go-to. That's interesting. Is that wool? Lately, my work has been about organizing confusing and disparate pieces to make a cohesive composition. I generally use matte medium and stitching to keep my pieces together. I recycle from my own studio, source fabric from secondhand stores, and use found or recycled papers such as old painting sketches. Since I own, I was wondering if that was rug hooking stuff. Since I own a rug hooking business, I use yards and yards of wool fabric. So I began transforming those ends to use as quillies and braids. I have made sculptures and used them in collages. Other materials have been found or given to me. A variety of materials, shiny, matte, flat, sculptural, bright, and dull, are important to have. My collages are where I can glue things that may not have come together on their own, but make up an interesting composition when placed together. Oh, I love that. And that. Very nice. That's beautiful too. Collage is about play and problem solving. That's lovely. Generally, my collages contribute to patterns designed for wallpaper and fabric. Well, that's a happy outcome. Beautiful. My favorite tools are scissors and maybe the squeegee. Scissors are my drawing pencil. Without them, my work would be entirely different. As for the squeegee, it's so much fun creating color combinations and textures with this magical tool. Isn't that beautiful? My patterns often offer a soothing escape from the stresses of modern life and offer a reminder of nature's healing power. Magazine spines. Toaster. The past is valuable and a rich source of inspiration. The other genre of art that I am drawn to is advertising. Promotional rulers, pencils, and matchbook covers are treasures to me aesthetically. I love incorporating them into my pieces. And I think that ends it for us. The more I work, the more new ideas pop up. Working is like priming the pump. I keep my studio journal handy and make detailed notes, drawings, and lists of resources. I might glue in materials that I want to use, as well as color samples and anything that might prove useful and jog new ideas. My journal accompanies me to bed, as I often get ideas at odd hours. I have a stack of journals dating back 20 years, and it's always interesting to go through them and maybe give new life to old ideas. Love it. Anyway, I need to stop there. I'm afraid to look at the time, but I will. It has been just over an hour. I hope that you have enjoyed looking at this. And again, I'll just remind you that the owner and publisher of Uppercase, including this Encyclopedia of Inspiration with all its books, Janine will be my guest on Wednesday, February, I believe it's the 25th. Anyway, the last Wednesday in February. So if you could join us, I think you will be impressed with this woman's work ethic, creativity, and her story. I hope you have enjoyed this, and I guess I better start keeping track of which books I flipped through, so that, anyway, that's my problem. Thanks, guys. We shall see you in the next one. Bye.